About the Democratic and Republican national stances. Politics is something that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Gets people riled up. So obviously, I want to be as unbiased as possible. What you're going to see on the screen here is just like snippets of the stances. I could probably talk days upon days about stances, and you'll probably disagree with some of the things that will be on the board, but they are taken from a website called ontheissue.org, which basically compares both sides, the Republican and the Democratic stances. And again, they're not side by side. Some of the issues you can see as this party stands here and that party stands there, but some of the issues, they don't have an opinion on both sides. Okay, so like I said, it's a comparative speech here, but they're not going to go side by side on a lot of issues. All right, the first thing that I will say, we're going to go Democratic and Republican just for our alphabetical reasons. But we're going to talk about abortion. According to Webster, abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. The Democrats are pro-choice. They're strongly supportive of Roe versus Wade within a woman's right to make a decision regarding her pregnancy. If you're like me, when you heard Roe versus Wade, you're like, I don't understand what that is. So I've done a little more research, and in a nutshell, it basically gives the right to privacy and due process, as well as the 14th Amendment, which extends the women's right to an abortion. In comparison with the Republicans, they're big on the Declaration of Independence, which gives a self-evident truth that says they assert the sanctity of human life. Basically, once the child is conceived, it's given civil rights, and it has rights, obviously cannot be murdered. The Republicans want to abolish Roe v. Wade, and also want to amend the 14th Amendment to include an unborn child to it. The budget economy. This is huge, and I could talk days upon days about this, but I'm just going with snippets, and obviously there's a little bit of discrepancies with some of the things I'm going to discuss here, but this is taken from ontheissue.org, as well as Democrats.com, and on the Republican side it is GOP.com. So this came actually directly from their websites, which give their political stances. Ultimately, Democrats believe working from the middle out. They want to give more tax breaks to the middle, and they obviously want to tax the overclass a little bit more because they can obviously live comfortably and also pay the taxes. And I mean, in America, you have to pay taxes because we got to give them money to function. And in retrospect to that, with big corporations, according to Democrat.org or Democrat.com, they want to tax the big corporations 35%, which is among the highest in the world. But that fluctuates, and there's always tax breaks. The Republicans have a different stance, and as inflation is considered a hidden tax. As you know, gas has risen considerably over the past couple of years here, as well as if you go to the supermarket, obviously prices have risen. You can tell that once you win $100 is not going to buy you the same thing as it did, 10 years ago. Also, with dealing with the Federal Reserve, the Republicans want more transparency, which means the Federal Reserve is where we borrow money from, and the Republican stance wants to see where that money's or what we're actually spending the money on. And there's not much transparency as of right now, from what I can gather. And also, they have a set stance that they want to lower the large corporation tax from 35 to 25, which, as I understand, that is a goal for Mr. Obama as well. But again, this is the Democratic and Republican national stance. So we'll get the next one here. Energy and oil. Obviously, that's going to deal with a lot about gasoline. The Democrats, in a nutshell, want to preserve the land we got. They don't particularly want to start drilling offshore or in Alaska, which, from what I can gather, there's a lot of oil sources there, or possible oil sources. And I mean, like I said, they want to preserve irreplaceable natural landscapes, kind of like Yellowstone and that kind of thing. In retrospect to Republicans, they want to pursue our own oil and gas simply because we can get it really cheap. Rather than the Middle East calls their price, we call our own price. Also, they want to start opening the OCS as well as the ANWR for exploration and production of oil, which goes back to, ultimately we'll lose some of our natural landscapes and some of the beauty of it, but again, with the oil prices keeping on rising, we got to have something going on. And also, dealing with mining, according to Mr. Romney, we have 225 years of coal left, approximately. He wants to mine it until it's out. That's kind of going along with the Republican stance. but it's also jumping into the election this year. Gun control is huge around this area. It's also huge around the bigger cities, but in our area, obviously the hunters want their guns so they can go hunting. Democrats, their main goal, they believe in the Second Amendment, but they believe in regulation. Simply, they don't want people to go buy an AK-47 just for fun. They also want more background checks, more thorough background checks. The Republicans believe strongly by the Second Amendment, and it's a God-given right that we can protect ourselves. The two court cases here define, which is District of Columbia versus Heller, as well as McNall versus Chicago, affirming the right to bear arms. Ultimately, you can bear any type of arm you have, and that's what these two Supreme Court decisions have said. The next one's healthcare, which is huge. I'm going to probably talk days upon this, but I had to pick snippets out, so it's kind of tough. The Democrats believe healthcare is a part of the American promise. They believe everyone's entitled to the same healthcare. For us, as college students as well as if you join the workforce, you can actually stay on your parents' healthcare system while you're in college, which is good for us. Read the next one here. In the Republicans' retrospect, the only thing that the Republicans did not like about Obamacare, it gave 1/6 of our economy in its control because it would force people to purchase health care, which is also attacking the Constitution. The main thing about Republicans is they think that this is causing you to buy something that you don't necessarily need to buy. Some people see it as a need, some people don't. But our government wants you to buy it regardless. And that's where the discrepancy comes into play. If for some reason Romney is elected, they're going to repeal the Obamacare try to. And, civil rights, quickly, the Democrats lead the way for same-sex couples. They also support the freedom of churches and religion entities to decide which how to administer marriage. And lastly, the Republicans do not believe, obviously, in same-sex marriage, and they believe in the passing of the Defense of Marriage Act, which bans gay-sex marriage. And in conclusion, there's no works cited. Doing this, I learned a ton about both sides of the Republicans and Democrats. Clearly, you probably can guess which side I lean to, but I learned a ton about which side I don't lean to.